Well, I am so excited to have with us a co-star of the acclaimed documentary Momentum, airing nationally on PBS. 20 years wrestling coach experience. Wow, he's helped thousands of kids from the program of world fighting champions, heavyweight champions, number one ranked parajuicers. I could go on, Ryan Wallace, but my gosh, let's get to the interview here. So excited about your film Momentum. You've certainly stirred a lot up here in the South Lake Tahoe community. Your father's one of my favorite people in the whole world. I'm again emotional here because as far as far as I'm concerned, your dad um, is is the perfect father. I don't
Yeah,
know what
he's
else to
awesome.
say. I think he's one of the most ideal people I've ever met on so many wonderful levels. And if I looked up father in the dictionary, I think his face is there already. So
Yeah, well,
uh,
case in point right here, right?
and there he is. Welcome, Ryan Wallace, to the Inspired Podcast. So excited to have you with us for our
Yeah,
very first show, and under my name. But our wonderful Vicky Wells has had this going on for many years, and she's got quite a following. So excited to have you with us. All right,
yeah,
let's. I just really can't wait to hear about this film, all the wonderful things you've done for the community, all the great lives you've helped and inspire. And I'd love it if you could take us back to the beginning of when you first woke up in the hospital after having, let's just get right to it, your leg amputated.
yeah. So, I first woke up and I was pain free for the first time in a long time. I'd been dealing with the tumors in that leg for a couple years. And so that part was incredibly relieving. But I was also kind of battling with two different timelines in my mind. One, I had tied a lot of my identity to athletic accomplishments. And, I live in Tahoe. So hiking, fishing, being outdoors, working hard. That was, a lot of my identity. And I was wondering, am I still going to be able to live that type of life at all? Or am I just going to be riding in the wagon and a drag on everyone and living a lesser version of life? Then on the other side, there was a kid I had met who had very similar thing to me at a much, and it had progressed to a much more aggressive stage. And within a few months of meeting him, he was gone. And so I also had in my mind, like, I have a second chance that kid didn't get. And, I, how grateful I am that my life was saved. So I started trying to shift to that positive timeline of let's see how far we can go with this new opportunity. Let's treat this second chance like the valuable gift that it is. And so, the next thing that I want to get to is I I got home. There was a couple months where I was laying there recovering, and I just started trying to walk every day. I had a cast with a peg and a tennis ball in the bottom, and I was just doing laps around the neighborhood. Like I wanted to get going. I didn't want to wait. I didn't use crutches. They said you should use crutches for a while. I was like, no, I'm not using that. I want the fear of falling to be in my mind to keep me up. So um and that helped with phantom pains. One of the questions I get a lot is, do you get phantom pains? A lot of the people that get phantom pains, it's because they had something catastrophic happen and they're stuck in the hospital for a long time. And the phantom pains build in that time. But if you get out there and you start putting pressure on that limb right away, it kind of alleviates that. So that mindset kind of taught me like, hey, we got to get after this thing. We can't just sit back and wait for things to happen. We got to make it happen. We got to solve these problems ahead of time.
Well, an incredible inspiration, of course. I mean, you went right into coaching after that, right after your amputation. I mean, somehow you kept your mind sharp and wanting to help others. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I got asked to be the assistant wrestling coach at the school that I was going to. I thought I was going to wrestle in college at that time, and then I had the surgery, I had all these problems. So I got asked to be the assistant wrestling coach, and I'd been around wrestling a long time, so I understand what it's like to have a boost in the room. It's an incredibly grueling sport. You do 2 or 3 hours of pushing yourself past the point of exhaustion. And so I know what it's like to have a boost in the room. And I immediately recognized that those kids saw me, despite just losing my leg, despite having all these problems, pushing them towards their goals and giving my time to them. And it motivated me to do more of that, which motivated them. And then as soon as I started setting my own goals and competing, I recognized that those wrestlers really responded and people around me really responded. which motivated me more. And that's what has mushroomed into this awesome life I have now, is that fact that me pushing past my visual encumbrance to accomplish goals motivates other people, which motivates me to set more, which motivates them more. And, that just expands exponentially. And the reach is just incredible. So yeah, that
Well,
experience, I'm so grateful that I got asked to do that, and that I was willing to. I was worried, like, what am I going to do? How am I going to teach these guys with one leg? How am I going to show them the moves? And I also was relearning the sport alongside them too, which has been really beneficial to my life too, of learning something I knew well again as an adult helped me teach other people, because I'm like, yeah, I know what it's like to not be able to get your head around that, or to not be able to push off of that leg or whatever, and readapt. So yeah, that's the foundation of my whole entire thing I've built after that, is that coaching, that one
well,
moment of
the
being asked.
coaching and then the challenges during the coaching and all this work that you're doing to help others, and then the prosthetic breaks, and you've got a fundraiser of people that came together to help you out with that and getting a new one. I can't imagine the cost of that and going through all those layers of getting that, handled. How did you do it?
Right. So I had one of the problems. I was living the second chance at 100 miles an hour. But what I wasn't doing, I didn't finish my college degree. I wasn't working career. I was just working jobs. I was focused on coaching. I was doing a lot of things right, but I was also kind of ignoring the fact that you do have to build an infrastructure that is sturdy, especially as you age. And so I was doing yard work. I had 2 bags of pine needles on my shoulders, and I took a weird step, and my prosthetic broke, and I tried to recover, and I landed on a rock with my foot, and my foot broke in the middle. So um, I was completely immobile, and I had that prosthetic was fairly new, and the insurance that I had was not willing to cover another prosthetic that was anywhere close to that level, which that's a whole other can of worms we don't need to open. But I was basically qualified to get just the most basic, terrible prosthetic that would have broken again instantly. Plus, I had this injured foot. So I went back to thinking that dark timeline where, okay, that was the thing I was thinking in the hospital. Like, maybe I'm just stuck here in bed now. I'm stuck indoors, and there's no more competing for me. There's no more coaching, no more of that. I'm just going to be you know, on welfare or whatever. And then not very long after, I had kind of capitulated to this new reality. The wrestling team and the community, like you said, created a fundraiser to buy me a new state of the art prosthetic. And they're anywhere from 25 to 50 grand, especially at that time. The computerized ones are the better ones. Um, and first of all, if you've never had the experience of everyone saying nice things about you and giving you money, I recommend it highly. Like it's incredible. I had my obituary basically read to me while I was still alive. They made a video, and this is when I had just the biggest coaching epiphany, and this is really when things changed for me again, to a higher degree. Is the kids who said the nicest things, worked hardest to get me money, said that I meant the most to them, or the sport meant the most to them, almost entirely were the kids who I would have told you did not get it. They weren't winning wrestling matches. They had attendance problems. They had off the mat problems. They had behavior issues, grade issues, you name it. The kids who I thought did not get it, the kids who I would have said, dang it, we could have done something great with him, but he never got it, or she could have been great, but she never showed up, or any of those were the kids who really said they were impacted by me. And
Wow.
that reworked my thought. Like, okay, the kids who win matches, that they're fine, but winning a wrestling match may not be that important of a skill. There's all these other things that we're learning, all these other habits. So anyway, they raised that money, and I was thinking about that thought. And then the other thought I had was like, why did people want to help me so much? What was I doing well that made people so quickly? Because it was 3 or 4 days that it took to raise 25 grand for me. It was incredible.
Wow.
And it was
Incredible.
just every time I checked the app, there was a new donation and a new kind word and a new message and whatever. And so I got it, and I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'm worth this, but I'm gonna prove that it was worth their effort. I'm gonna prove that their trust in me was well founded. So I got this brand new leg, and I put everyone's name who contributed. It's really cool. I actually still have that socket. I should have brought it to show you, but I realized all of these people were impressed with what I was doing, or wanted me to do more of it, or wanted to help. So I wanted to be successful to prove to them that they did a good thing. But my foot was still broken. So I was stuck in bed, and I was thinking, all right, I have to figure out what the best version of Ryan with this new leg is going to be. And so I just started studying successful people. And I learned one real important thing is that successful people are the same as all of us. They just do the things that we don't want to do. And the things we don't want to do, it's pretty much universal. We don't want to get up early. We don't want to do the dishes. We don't want to read an important book instead of watch a movie. We don't want to do those things, but the successful people find a way to do it. And the main way they do that is by making a habit of it and having successful habits. So that epiphany was twofold. It was one, make sure that I'm reaching the kids who I think aren't getting it, and put an environment that supports them. And two, make sure that I'm showing them that the real path to success, and what we were doing inadvertently, was creating successful habits. Showing up every day to work out, having your diet in control, having your goals set, all of those habits that we were setting in the wrestling room. That was the actual successful part that they were getting. The matches, winning the matches and all that, that's a very small element of it. And ever since that approach, the program has exploded in numbers, and our success has skyrocketed. The school, in our school history, we had one state champion ever, and I've already now had three in the
Wow.
last decade. So, we got
Incredible.
two more that are probably on the way this next season, and then more in the pipeline. So, it's amazing to me to realize that focusing on that element of it actually made the part that I was focusing on better.
Well, very good point. And when you say epiphany, I would have to say that is, well, as independent males and being raised to just handle it all yourself and not ask for help, and just that, just literally being taken down, and I mean literally to where
Yeah,
you just have to, or you don't have to, but you
right.
chose to ask. And by
Yeah,
asking, who knew? And I mean, there's a lot we don't know about ourselves that the community just openly talks about, that maybe it doesn't come back to you at all. Certainly both your parents, and I mean Tamara Wallace, of course, and I mean your phenomenal father, and I mean you could just see wonderful examples of that. And I just we don't know what we don't know. But if
right.
we're going out there and doing good like you are, and then and then and you did, you built up a heck of a lot of good out there, and people wanted to just come right in and do what they could do to help out. And wow, what a great result.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. So, hey, let's talk about Momentum, the documentary,
Yeah,
and particularly that relationship you've got with Chris Cocores, the fighter that you coached for so long. I'd love to hear all about him.
yeah. So, part of that, what we were talking about that approach of gathering as many people, is I started working with the MMA gym too, and we had a beach wrestling tournament, and Chris showed up, and he got worked by even some of our newer wrestlers, and he's like, "Hey, I need to get some training in with you guys." And then out of all the guys I've coached, like, he was the most enthusiastic, and like he desired success more than almost anybody I've ever been around.
Wow.
It felt like you're in the orbit of greatness when you're around him. He just wanted it so bad. And so he practiced with us, the high school team. He worked with us all the time. He and I did a lot of individual work. And one of the things, it's just interesting to me, because I always felt in my heart, I tell the kids all the time, and I was especially telling him, like, what we're doing is actually a simulation of reality. You know, we're putting times are great for us. We live in Lake Tahoe. We have the free time to train for our own goals. We're not struggling for survival. Everything is relatively good for us. So we need to be using this time to prepare for disaster. We need to be using this time to prepare for, when a catastrophe hits us, because that's what happened to me. Everything was going good, and then I found out I had bone tumors, and the next thing my whole life is different. I had an amputation, but I had a template to build off of after losing a match, after training so hard to get something and then being set back and then having to get back in there. So I had that template already. So I wanted to give that. This is what we're doing. We are trying to simulate problems so that when a real problem happens, we're ready. I was always preaching that to him. And then he practiced with us and he left to go to San Diego, and we went to go to a tournament. And that was the night he got into his car wreck. And
Oh,
so, and then around midnight, he called me and told me that what had happened, and he was in the hospital at that time. And even then, I knew based on my conversation with him and the training we had done that he was going to do what he did, which is come back and be awesome. Did I think he was going to fight in the cage again? Probably not, especially not after he sent me the pictures of his guts all hanging out and everything. It's horrible. If you guys watch the film, you'll see that part. It's just, I
yeah,
mean, I just broke down in tears, just
yeah.
completely broken, because it's like, dude, this guy was at the peak of amateur MMA, on the way to a pro career, had done everything right, had overcome a lot already to do everything right, and then got knocked back. But then he built himself all the way back to being able to fight in the cage. And so Michelle Aguilar, she somebody I knew, she's a filmmaker from Tahoe. She heard about his comeback, and she started filming him, and then she was filming me coaching him, and asked me if I wanted to be kind of involved in the project. And I was like, yeah, of course, this is a story people need to hear. But at that time I thought, this is going to be kind of a nice thing that we have, but I didn't realize it was going to go become a national broadcasted story, and that it was going to be, I get routinely messages, this I was gonna commit suicide and I watched this, or
Oh,
I
yeah.
was depressed and I watched this and it motivated me, or any number of things like that. I constantly get those messages, and it's still basically an infant, this project. um and so, and I've watched it 16 times, and I'm working on this discussion guide for it right now, and I watched it again. I'm like, this is just a really good piece of art, let alone the tool that it is. Um, and so, yeah, that relationship with Chris, the biggest thing, and I say it at the end of the film, he validated that approach that I talked about, that I learned, is that you gotta encompass the entire individual. Athletic goals are great, but athletic goals are just a simulation so that we can apply the successful habits, the successful traits, and the determination necessary to overcome actual problems.
That is what sports is so great for. It's just so clear we're in a physical earth, with our mental minds and just getting the two to work well together. It's just such a metaphor for so many things in life, and certainly basketball and baseball and soccer and every level of it, and certainly wrestling,
Yeah,
downhill skiing. I mean, everything. Rock climbing, that was a tough one for me.
yeah.
Just getting up there on the wall and just facing my fears. It's just so hilarious when you get off the wall and think what how I'm really reacting to something. It's just wow. It's I can certainly see how that can happen in wrestling, and to be
Yeah,
coached by your father, of course, too.
yeah,
I mean, he's certainly known, Coach Wallace,
yeah,
and of course CEO of the chamber here in South Lake Tahoe. I mean, you come from such great leadership. How has your family inspired you?
yeah. I mean, one thing is they're competitive, and so there's one side of it of just, I am competitive enough to kind of want to outdo them. They're always doing things, and I'm like, hey, I want the family to be, I want it to belong to me. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So that's one side of it, and they gave me that. If you see our family game nights, you would think we were the worst
Oh,
people. You think we're good
I
now?
want to come over. This sounds
Oh man,
great.
if you saw us play Monopoly or something, you would think we're the most evil people on earth.
I can see it. I can see it. Yeah.
So there's that element. And then, you know, when you have the example of someone, when you're all the way from when we were young, you know, if we were on a Pop Warner football team and there was a kid who needed snow boots, we were delivering snow boots to that kid.
Yeah.
Or we had our cousins living with us, or they were foster parents. They always had them. They adopted my brother Riley. There's all of that element of, we were always understanding that this is one of the key concepts of my life. Human beings are tribal by nature, and we are better when everyone in the tribe wants the well-being for the other members of the tribe. And when we see somebody struggling in the tribe, we recognize that that's a problem for the whole tribe, and we help them, pick them up, and it makes our lives better by making their life better. And that was one of the things that they taught me right away. I've always understood that because of what they showed. And so that's something that it permeates every decision you make. You know, it informs every decision you make when you understand that anyone in your orbit belongs to your tribe, and their well-being should be at the forefront of your mind. And if you're constantly giving and building other people up, it comes back to you. And that's not the reason you do it, but it does help you. And when it comes back to you, you have more to give, and then that expands and expands. And so that's something they've taught me both directly and indirectly.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant family, brilliant parents. And of course, this documentary Momentum getting so much attention and doing so much good. Give us some examples of what it's doing in the community and beyond.
Yeah. So first, like I said, I thought it was just going to be kind of a fun project for us, and just kind of like, hey, remember when we did that? Or like almost like an advanced home video kind of thing. Now, after people watch it, they're inspired. And particularly, I had our schools watch it. And at the end of the film, I had them fill out a Google form. What's your biggest challenge that will make your story great when you overcome it? What's your biggest goal, and who can support you? And I worked at the school at the time, and even some of these were wrestlers that I had, kids I was with every day. First of all, in the positive side, put goals that were outstanding, that were ambitious, creative, you know, outside of what I thought they were into. And I'm like, dude, we could have been working on this. We could have been working this at any time, and I didn't know it. And then on the negative side, these kids were putting challenges that were just absolutely heartbreaking, that I had no idea they were dealing with that. And they could have told me, and we could have been working to solve it. And so I started to create this thing called Momentum Mentors, where we find those kids that need help. And I know there's people in the community that want to help, and we're connecting those two dots. The students that I worked with every day, I immediately realized they were way more open after they watched the film. And they put their goals and their challenges. And for the most part, it was heartbreaking to me. One, that the kids felt the way they do. You know, they're dealing with depression and alcohol abuse and drug use, and, you know, parents incarcerated, you name it. Every sad thing you could imagine a kid writing, I had it on a spreadsheet in front of me. And these were the kids who I was working with every day trying to help. It's like I was missing a massive piece, being able to help them, obviously, because, you know, I was there every day, and they never expressed these things to me. And I noticed a couple things. One, they feel very alone in their problems. And after they watch the film and they see Chris talks about his troubles with his home life and his parents' drug addiction, his mother passing away from cancer, and his own issues with the same things, those kids realize that, you know, even people who do awesome things have those same struggles. And then, you know, they see me, I talk about the dark thoughts that I had, and they're like, well, even the guy who is known for being the most positive motivational guy has those problems. So I realized this film now is an amazing tool to connect with those kids, have those individuals express their problems, and then let's get on the path to fixing it. And I just don't think our kids, especially our kids in Tahoe, I mean, they shouldn't feel this way. There shouldn't be such a large number of kids feeling so low. And
And
then on
Ryan,
the
if
other
I can
side,
interject just for 1 second, there's
yeah,
one crucial thing you're leaving out. And even my living in New York City and coming from major urban areas, Los Angeles for so many years, and working in the entertainment business, I've never seen so much sort of questioning their sexuality and transitioning and all of that going on now at such a young age and at school. It's just an unbelievable terrain of stuff to deal with, to show up for, to focus on. Forget
yeah.
eating consistently and having a good nutrition program and all the rest of that stuff, and then all the family issues as well. I can imagine how many people just gravitate to you for support and direction.
And exactly. And so one of the messages I give is there's not one single thing that precludes you from success, no matter what your background is, what type of person you identify as, any of those things. None of those preclude you from happiness and success. And I think this is the problem, the counter message that I'm trying to give out. They're just inundated from social media and advertisements and everything with a message that if you get this product, if you do this thing, if you look like this, if you do whatever, that's what's going to make you happy, and that you're not happy because you don't have that. And these kids are slammed with that, and they don't have the context to understand that that's not true. And in their hand is a device that connects them with people that want something from them constantly and care nothing about them other than see them as a commodity. So I'm trying to counter that message, and now I have that platform. So I'm just trying to get it out as much as possible. As there's not a magic wand, there's not a politician and a policy that's going to solve it. There's not a product that's going to solve it. There's not a substance that's going to solve it. It just comes from you deciding this is the type of person I am. This is the type of person I want to be. And the goal that I want to set, that's not going to make me happy. What's going to make me happy is working towards that goal and becoming the person worthy of that goal. And so, like I tell the wrestlers, it's very simple in their context. Getting your hand raised at the end of the match feels good, but that's not what it's about. What it's about is being the person worthy of getting your hand raised. We have thousands of kids that start the season and it narrows down to one state champion per weight class. Does that mean every other kid who did the sport was a failure? No, not at all. All of those kids got dedicated, devoted their energy towards a goal. They learned how to do that, and they learned what it's going to take to be successful in any field. And so I think, like you said, just all of that confusion and all of that messaging they're getting, it's not doing anybody a service. And I think, like I always circle back to, we've lost that tribalness that makes life good because we're connected with all these people that are not considering us part of their tribe. We're connecting with people that consider us a commodity or consider us a means towards their own gain. And so that's what I'm trying to create is I'm trying to get I'm trying to get a program that makes everyone feel like they can be successful, their story is worth hearing, and that they should have the people around them's well-being at the forefront of their mind, and that will create the life that they want and that will make them happy.
So,
And
Ryan,
and
in the
so
Momentum program and Momentum Indoors, what are some tools that they can take home with them? Because, of course, being in school just feels so good. I mean, you've got good direction, good support, people that care about you and love you. Maybe you're getting bullied a little bit, but maybe you have somebody to go to like yourself that can give them some tools to carry forward to take home to a rough home life, or an alcoholic home life, or a drug abuse home life, or abandonment or abuse. I mean, it just almost feels like the common terrain at this time in
yeah,
family
yeah,
life.
and it's overwhelming. So number one, the most important thing I think is to come up with an identity. Just for example, in the film, Chris says, "I don't know what quitting feels like," and he has made in his mind the person who just doesn't quit no matter what. And then anytime anything happens, he knows about himself, I don't quit. And so he just doesn't quit. Or like me, I consider myself generous. So any opportunity I have to give, I give. So having an identity like that and core values that you can base on, it makes it a lot easier because that informs your decision. You don't have to make a new decision each time. And it doesn't require a tremendous amount of willpower each time you're faced with something. You just say, like a very simple example is I read a study about people quitting smoking, and people that say I'm trying to quit relapse at a much higher rate than people that say I'm not a smoker. And that's just a very, very simple change
Hmm.
in mindset and wording. And so I'm trying to give them that. Like, say, some kid wants to be a top athlete. If their friends say, "You want to go party?" Say, "No, I'm an athlete. I'm focused on my athletic goals." Or if they want to be something in an intellectual field, they say, "No, I'm a student. I'm going to study first." That kind of that basic thing, that tool of having your identity, that's our first step. Then we talk about habits. All the successful people I've studied set themselves up with habits and then stacking those habits. For example, we all wake up in the morning. What's the first thing we do? We check our phone. If you can change your first habit to you get up and you drink a glass of water, that's one step towards that. And then it becomes a habit that you build off of. Then you're like, okay, I drink my glass of water and I do my 25 push ups. Then I drink my glass of water, do my push ups, brush my teeth. And once you start stacking those habits, it becomes you're just in control of every second of your day. And then you
Wow.
don't have time to even worry about all of that other stuff that's coming at you because you're focused on, okay, I just did this. Now I do this. I did this. I do this. And then it kind of eliminates the doom scrolling on the phone or whatever without you having to do willpower to do it and be like, no, don't do it. That never works. That doesn't work and it won't. Um, and then the last part is setting the goals is massively important. But there's one major problem I've learned with having kids set goals is they get in the mindset of if I don't accomplish that, I'm a failure, or I'll be happy then. And it's understandable. It's easy to kind of get in that mindset. But what I try to let them know is we're trying to live the life worthy of the goal that we want. And so now when we have decisions to make, be like, does the person who is in the MLB, does that person lay on his butt all day on a summer day? Or does he go to the batting cage? Or does the person who has a PhD, do they play video games right now or do they read? That type of that type of ability to just make each choice kind of binary, this, or does the person I want to do that? Is the person I want to be do what I'm doing right now? If the answer is yes, keep doing it. If the answer is no, don't do it. And simplifying that way so far has seemed to be really powerful for anyone, young people, all the way up to adults that I've talked to. So that's kind of the tools I want to give. That's what's worked for me the most is just like anyone, I can get bad habits or good habits, but stacking my habits and then just having an identity and I call it casting votes towards that identity. Just
Oh, good.
every time I have the choice to make a decision, do I make a vote towards that person I say I am and want to be, or do I make a vote against that person? And when you explain it to people that way, it makes it very, very easy and it's powerful. It's extremely powerful. And little tiny changes on top of each other creates a whole different person over the course of time. I think of it. So I had my captain's license. And I got it when I was around 20. And when you're doing the captain's test, if you're off by just a tiny degree when you're plotting a course, you end up way far away from your desired destination. And so I tell kids that way, like, if you're just nudging yourself the wrong way slowly, you're going to end up way off course. But the same way, slight changes back the good way will get you back on track. So that way you don't have to think of it as like, I need to change everything or I need to change something massive. Just change the little things you can control. And that's going to move you back online, back on course, and we'll get to where we want to go. And also, while we're on that way, we're doing good things, we're having a good time, and we are feeling good about ourselves.
And you got people like you around you. It's the consistency that creates the empowerment, releases the oppression, little by little. It's not all done at once. Wow, momentum indoor, great program. How can people learn more about this? How can they get involved and contribute?
Yeah, so if you go to marcellafoundation.org, and then there's a tab up there, Momentum Film, you can find the link to watch the film on PBS if you haven't seen it yet. Even if I wasn't in it, I would recommend it. It's just a great piece of art. And then you can also request a screening. So a screening at your school or organization will include watching it and then having me either provide materials that I've been working on or come in person to talk or to try to implement this type of program in your organization.
Well,
I'm
I
already
just got
working.
chills. They must be so excited to have you show up, certainly for at their school to prove here I am, and what an inspiration that is.
Yeah, and like I said at the beginning, the fact that I motivate other people motivates me more, and it's very, very, it's really hard to like, I was raised to be humble and generous, so it's very hard at the beginning to pitch myself like, hey, you should have me, I'm awesome. But the reciprocation I've been getting for the love that I'm pouring out has been so amazing that I've pushed past that insecurity and like, yeah, this is a really good thing. And the kids go crazy, adults go crazy. Anyone that I've worked with so far has just loved it, and they've been open, and I'm learning so much. Uh, like I just wish that I could go back 5 years and say, hey, dude, this is what this project is going to end up being, um,
Yes.
and uh,
Now,
and have prepared a little
let me
more.
ask you a quick question about 5 years ago. Let's
Yeah,
just say here you are 5 years later. Um, how do you combat the negativity that still would come into your mind? I mean, I don't know anybody that doesn't have it. What tools can you give people to combat that dark side and get on
what
the other side of that?
one thing that a simple thing that I always go back to. I've done a few adaptive athlete seminars teaching combat sports to adaptive athletes. And there's a guy I know who's in a wheelchair permanently. And I heard another kid. We were doing this thing where there was young athletes, kids who had limb differences and other issues. And one of the kids asked him how he deals with being stuck in a wheelchair. And his answer was, I don't think of it that way. I think how amazing it is that I live in a time where someone like me can get around so freely, and how amazing it is that I have controls that can drive me up any hill or get anywhere. And he said, any other time in history, I would have been stuck indoors or probably not alive at this point. So that one mindset that he gave, I always go back to. Like, I don't think, oh man, how do I have, this sucks that I have one leg. I think, first of all, how amazing prosthetics are. And then second of all, I think how fortunate I am that anything I do motivates people. And anytime I want to get out of any plans, I have a perfect excuse. I got one leg and I never have to match socks. So,
Yeah.
it's just, it's the,
Yeah.
throughout history, they always say, look on the bright side. And that's very simplistic and it's almost patronizing in a way to tell someone that. But it's also true. Like, look in at your situation and recognize, if we were in somewhere in the Middle East, there's people who don't, they're fleeing a war-torn area and they're going to a place that doesn't want them. How much worse is that than me having to deal with an inconvenience? Or they don't know when their next meal is. How much worse is that than me having to stick to a diet? Or their home is being blown up. How much worse is that than me having to deal with someone who is a negative person who's a drag on me or whatever? There, there's so much. There's so many opportunities for us now where we have knowledge of the entire world. There's so many opportunities for us to not compare ourselves to like an idealized Instagram image of someone, but to think of how much better we have it than someone in a worse condition. And I also, anytime I start thinking negative or have that down thought, I think, who else is probably feeling this way that I could commiserate with and then help get out of it, you know? And like one of the wrestlers I coached, he was in he worked for the garbage company and he fell off and the truck ran him over
Mm.
and his hand got mangled and he got broken bones and everything. And when I went to the hospital, he to see him, he's like, I just thought of you immediately. And he's like, I knew that you wouldn't be bummed right now, so I'm not. And so anytime you get that negative thought, just realize that people are inspired by you not feeling that way. And that should be reason enough to feel good and to be happy and to push through that goal. Because you have no idea. Your nieces, your children, your nephews, your cousins, people in your community, they're watching you, whether you think it or not. And
They
it's
are.
okay.
We don't know how much good we're doing, but if
Right.
we are getting up and our intention is good moving forward, there's lots of challenges in life, of course. And like you said, what a great perspective. Let's find out about your athletic goals, what you have planned for
Yeah.
yourself.
So number one, I want to bench press 500. I'm around 455 right now. And then I have two swimming goals. Penultimate swimming goal is to go from Cave Rock to Emerald Bay, which
Oh,
is about 13 miles. Right
wow.
now, I have my time where I can get a mile in about an hour plus. So I got some work to do on that one. And then ultimate goal, I want to go from Camp Richardson to Cal Neva, which is about 26.
So
Um,
for our international and for people that haven't been to Tahoe and have no idea how the distance of that, can you give us a perspective between Emerald Bay and Cave Rock
yeah. So
distance?
if you go, I don't know exactly how many it would be in meters, but basically consider swimming straight for about 6.5 hours.
Okay, and it's cold.
And it's
It's a mountain
cold and
lake,
it's
an alpine lake,
high elevation.
right?
And it's deep and dark and scary.
Deep and dark and scary. Yeah. Well, boy, what a way to end this interview with great inspiration over the deep and dark and scary with your guide, Ryan Wallace, carrying you all the way. So please tune in. Please take a look at Momentum. You can Google Momentum. You can Google all of the great things that this film is doing. You can invite it to your school. He'll be right there to help inspire your family, your friends, your school. And wow, what a great calling in life you've got there, Ryan. Things you've done for Chris and for everybody else in your program.
Of course. And follow me on Instagram too, because I put a lot of what I'm doing on there. Ryan the Champutee Wallace. Champutee as a portmanteau of champion and amputee.
Fantastic. All right. What a treasure you are. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to have you as our very first interview on
Yeah,
Inspired as myself as host. Of course, you can always catch a lot more interviews with the fabulous Vicki Wells. And we look forward to talking to you again.
sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.